We start the anime seeing how the teacher recommends the students to study for next year's university exams and also to enjoy the beach while they can. He also tells them that he would love to go with them although he can't. Now is when we meet Toru Ishikawa, who asks him why they would invite a teacher, to which the teacher replies that it makes no sense to go to the beach with boys. Now we meet Yuki Yoshikawa, and she comments that the teacher is great, but he talks too much, to which Kyoko Hori tells her to ignore him. When a girl asks her if something happened between the teacher and Kyoko, to which she answers that this morning the teacher told her to keep her chin up and that he loves girls with flat chests and to be more confident. Then Yuki comments that a boy from another school asked her for a number. Kyoko prefers not to give it to him, since he didn't have the courage to ask for it himself. When they are interrupted by Toru, who invites them to karaoke, Kyoko refuses. Here is when we see Izumi Miyamura, who when she leaves runs into Kyoko's phone to later give it to her, which surprises everyone and they are left observing Miyamura, since he seems very somber. After seeing the time, he leaves quickly and we learn from his friends that he is always in a hurry to return home, to what Yuki speculates that maybe he got a boyfriend. But when we get home we learn that he is literally a very young householder, due to the fact that his father is almost always busy. Then Kyoko goes to look for Sota, his younger brother, and on the way he crosses Miyamura, but she does not recognize him because of his very different appearance. The next day Sota falls and Miyamura accompanies him to his house, which surprises Kyoko, because when she was watching Sota she did not notice that Miyamura was there. When he tries to leave he is stopped by Sota, and then Kyoko offers him to stay for a while if he is not busy. They have coffee and Miyamura praises Kyoko because she does all the chores around the house, which causes her to be surprised, since he calls her by her name, but she still does not realize that he is Miyamura, and then he explains that he is Miyamura. The next day we see how Kyoko approaches him and tells him that she wants him to go play with Sota again, to which Miyamura agrees and is happy, since he thought that after yesterday he would not talk to her again. But Kyoko replies that there is no way he would do that, which causes Miyamura to blush and tells him that he is not used to being told such things. Kyoko then tells Miyamura that she should wear her hair up more often, but Miyamura tells her that if she does that the piercings will show. Then we find out some things about Miyamura, like that her parents own a cake store, that she got pierced in high school and her grades are average, unlike Kyoko who has good grades. Then, Kyoko tells her about an egg promotion in a supermarket until 4 in the afternoon, when this one is embarrassed, since Miyamura is very close to her. But the next day an unforeseen arises because there is a student council meeting, but Kyoko does not give up and leaves the order to Miyamura. This one runs out while disarranging in a very epic way and jumps the fence to get there faster when he surprises Yuki, who is on the way. In the evening we learn that the mission was a success, and then Miyamura comments to him that Yuki saw him dressed like that, to which Kyoko tells him that she doesn't want anyone to see him like that, but somewhat embarrassed she tells him to forget what he said. To which Miyamura tells her that he doesn't want anyone else to see how she is when she is with him either, and that he feels as if this moment belongs to him alone, which causes Kyoko to be embarrassed, to which Kyoko tells him that it is better than running a marathon, to later see how Miyamura has tattoos on his arm and the side of his torso, but they find out later that the swimming lessons turned out to be optional. Later Kyoko's friends notice that she now spends her time talking to Miyamura. When Toru approaches to talk to him and asks him if he is dating Kyoko, to which Miyamura says no. Then Toru tells him that the two are nothing alike. Then Miyamura tells him that he is right and that they would not make a good couple, and when changing the subject Miyamura asks him if he likes Kyoko, which upsets Toru, and after continuing to talk for a while we learn that he does like her when they are interrupted by Shiura and tells them that it is time for physical education. Later, we see how they change to go to class when Toru asks Miyamura why he always wears a winter uniform, and then shows him his tattoos. Later Toru asks him how he became friends with Kyoko so suddenly, to which Miyamura tells him that it wasn't suddenly, as it's been a while since they've been friends, but he feels that she's just being nice to him and they're nothing more than friends. We then see Miyamura avoiding Kyoko when they are interrupted by Toru, who asks to talk to Kyoko after school, to which Miyamura tells her not to worry about Sota, as he will look for him. Then we move on to see Miyamura at Kyoko's house and she tells him that they need to talk. We see how she asks him if he really thinks they are a bad match and if he also thinks that nothing else is nice to him, to which Miyamura replies that he did say all that, which surprises Kyoko, who asks him if that's what he really thinks, but Miyamura denies it, as he just thought that since he is so shady it might affect her and her reputation. When Kyoko starts to cry and tells him that he shouldn't care about her reputation and then gives Miyamura a headbutt and gets angry. When she calms down Miyamura asks her about Toru and we learn that he was rejected. The next day we see how Toru arrives and greets Miyamura and he starts to cry. We see how Miyamura accompanies Kyoko to do her shopping, who starts to sing an anime song. Miyamura asks what kind of music she likes, but she doesn't know what music is popular now and only knows the songs of the anime that Sota listens to, only to be surprised by her mother, who is at home. While talking to her children, she asks her daughter Miyamura's name, and we learn that Kyoko doesn't know Miyamura's name. So Kyoko spends the day trying to find out Miyamura's name and even spying on the boys' locker room. Back home, Kyoko's mother asks her if Miyamura is coming tomorrow, to which she replies positively. The next day, Miyamura is surprised by Kyoko's mother, who talks for a moment and thanks him for helping her children and then says goodbye to go to work. Kyoko returns from running errands to learn that her mother already knows Miyamura's name. After much thought, she asks Miyamura his name, which causes him to start laughing, since that is the reason why she was so worried these days. Miyamura then gives her a note with his name, and asks her to call him by his name so that she won't forget it, and since Miyamura always calls Kyoko by her last name Hori, she thought she didn't know his name, but she ended up more embarrassed because he did. The next day we see how Kyoko gives some reports to Sengoku Kakura, the president of the student council, and the latter asks Kyoko for more help, to which Kyoko agrees, and we see that it is already afternoon and Yuki complains to Kyoko, since they always send important jobs to Kyoko and that they're just using her, but Kyoko replies that it doesn't matter, since that doesn't change the fact that they need help. When we go to see Miyamura with Toru and he tells her that Sengoku is the best in the class and is quite popular, Remi Ayasaki, Sengoku's assistant in the student council, shows up to get the reports, and we learn from Yuki that she is Sengoku's girlfriend. When they say goodbye we see how Remi collides with Miyamura, and then Miyamura helps Remi, but she leaves a report and tells Miyamura that it doesn't matter and to throw it away. When Miyamura sees it, he knows that it is important, since it is a report. The next day we see how they complain to Kyoko because they are missing the report that Remi threw, and when they corner Kyoko we see how Miyamura approaches and tells Kyoko that she has nothing to worry about, and then gives a headbutt to Sengoku that leaves everyone surprised, and then gives them the missing report and explains that Remi left it on the floor and told her to throw it away. And when the problem is over we see how Remi starts to cry and apologizes to everyone. After calming down, Toru asks him why he gave Sengoku the headbutt, to which Miyamura answers because he was a little angry, and then asks Kyoko if Sengoku has something dirty on her, since she always does what he asks for, and then we learn that she helps him because she bothered him since they were little and continued to do so until they reached high school, but she evades the issue and tells her friends that he is just a childhood friend. The next day we see how Miyamura greets Sengoku and Sengoku greets him back terrified, and then we move on to see how Toru and Miyamura discuss Kyoko's birthday while playing ping pong, which leaves Miyamura doubting what to give Kyoko. We then see how Kyoko worries after Sota asks her if Miyamura will stop coming around often someday. That makes her question herself, and then Sota tells her that she should be more honest with herself, and so Kyoko's birthday arrives and she completely forgot her birthday when Sota gives her a drawing and Miyamura gives her a CD with the popular songs, or at least the ones he likes, to which Kyoko thinks it's just what she wanted, and then tells her that spring break is almost over and soon they will be in third year. We see Miyamura's past, that he was always left alone in group activities, to then see how his first drilling is done. Later we see Miyamura's first interaction with Kyoko, as Kyoko has been grouped with Miyamura for a report. Apart from that, he tells her that the others think she is a gloomy person, but she sees him as totally normal. Thus we return to the present where they resume classes, and we go on to see how they are looking for her name in the lists of students after confirming that they stayed together again in class 1. Then Miyamura questions if she is really part of that group of friends. At that very moment, we see how the teacher asks them to make groups of 4, and in an instant they all group around Miyamura for the activity. When we happen to see Miyamura next to Toru on the rooftop, and Miyamura asks her what she thinks of him, to which Toru tells her in short that he's a nuisance and that's why she has to keep an eye on him. Toru then asks him the same question, but he doesn't get to answer it because Miyamura calls Toru by his first name, and Toru gets embarrassed because he always calls him by his last name. Toru tells him that it's very weird, but that's okay, which causes Miyamura to start crying. Upon returning to the classroom they are scolded by Kyoko, since they agreed to finish the report in their free hour. The next day we see Kyoko, who is surprised by Remi, who sits in front of her and tells her that Miyamura is quite handsome, and then asks if he is her boyfriend, to which Kyoko says no. Remi asks if she can have him for herself, which upsets Kyoko, and we see how she refuses and ends up telling him that Miyamura is hers and she will never give him to him. Then, we see how Miyamura and Kyoko spend time alone together because since Sota started elementary school they have more alone time. They start watching a horror movie, and we learn that Miyamura is fearful, as he can't even endure a horror movie, when a blackout occurs, where Kyoko compares her hand to Miyamura's and then holds his hand and tells him "I love you," then tries to deny it, but it's too late, because Miyamura replies that he loves her too. We see Remi that tells Sakura that she was only playing with Kyoko, but this one was altered by Miyamura in what Toru listens to them, since he was in the stairs, for then to see as Miyamura arrives with a blow in his face. When seeing it, Kyoko asks him what happened, to which Miyamura answers that he fought with Toru, which provokes Kyoko's anger until Toru appears and they see that he is more beaten than Miyamura. Later we see how Yuki asks him what happened, to which Miyamura says that he dodged all but the first blow and then he gave a beating to Toru, and at that same moment Kyoko asks the same question to Toru, but he refuses to tell her. It turns out that Toru tells him that Kyoko is in love with Miyamura, to which Miyamura responds saying that she doesn't see him that way. When he approaches Miyamura, he hits him because he surprised him, and so the fight starts and we see how Miyamura beat up Toru, and then Toru stops the fight. Returning to the present, Kyoko and Yuki are talking about what each of the guys told them, and we learn that they both blamed each other, and Yuki knows the cause of the fight. Toru is walking when he sees leaves falling from the second floor, and when he looks up he sees Sakura. Later, we see how Toru gives the leaves to Sakura and this one thanks him, and then Toru tells her that it is great how he works so hard even when nobody is watching. Then we see how Miyamura gives an ice cream to Toru and tells him that he was waiting for him to go home together, but he did not appear, so Kyoko gives him the ice creams and told him to give one to Toru, but as the ice cream is of melon he cannot eat it. Sengoku is stopped by Toru and Miyamura to give him the melon ice cream. Then Toru and Miyamura complain because Sengoku and the council have an air-conditioned room. He tells her that they can stop by whenever they want to cool off. Then we see how Miyamura's whole group goes to the room and spends quality time together. We see Kyoko and Miyamura studying at Kyoko's house. She apologizes, as the air conditioner is damaged, to which Miyamura replies that she doesn't mind the heat due to sleeping without clothes, which surprises Kyoko. Kyoko asks Miyamura if she doesn't feel embarrassed, to which Miyamura says yes, then tells her that she recently ran into a friend from high school, and that's when we meet Koichi Shindo. He tells her that he's really jealous because Miyamura is finally growing up, to which Miyamura replies that he missed so many days that they made him repeat. Shindo tells him that he doesn't mean that but the fact that he has a girlfriend. Then Miyamura denies it and tells him that he doesn't care about those things, but Kyoko does. Shindo tells him that if he doesn't call his girlfriend by her name, to which Miyamura replies that he does. We go back to the present and Miyamura apologizes because he thought it would be okay if he thinks they're dating, which made Miyamura blush a lot when he gets a message, and tells Hori that he will tell Shindo that they are not dating, but Miyamura sees the picture that Shindo sent him and this makes him angry. Then he reads Shindo's message and deletes it. To finish, he calls Shindo to tell him to die. The next day we see how Hori is a bit sick, but she denies it. When Shindo appears and greets her, we see Miyamura walking next to Toru when he sees Kyoko next to Shindo, which causes Miyamura to run out and hit him. Shindo tells him that he is his friend since forever and he should at least introduce him to Kyoko, to which Miyamura proceeds to explain that Shindo is his former classmate. Toru asks him if he knows him and Miyamura says no, but the two are surprised because he is in second year, to which Miyamura tells them why he is a fool, but Shindo defends himself by saying that he goes to the best school in town, which causes everyone's astonishment, but Shindo says that he would have loved to go to Katagiri together with Miyamura, which makes Miyamura curious, to which Shindo replies that he seems to be having fun. At that moment, we move on to see Miyamura's past when they became friends. The next day we see how Kyoko has a cold and insists on going to school when she is stopped by Soda. At that moment, Miyamura shows up with medicine, and as he is about to leave, he is stopped by Kyoko asking him not to go. We then see a flashback of Kyoko where her mother tells her that she is so good at putting up with things, only to have Kyoko tell her that it's okay because her father is away at the time and work is hard for her. We come back to the present and see Kyoko start to ramble and Miyamura tells her that he won't go anywhere until she asks him to. We see Kyoko lying down and Miyamura tells her that he already notified the school that she is sick and that he has been in love with her for a while. Miyamura leaves the room and Kyoko is worried because she wants to stay as she is for a little while longer. The next day we see Kyoko avoid going to class because she doesn't know how to see Miyamura. When Soda goes to class and sees Miyamura walking with a girl accompanied by Shindo, Soda returns home and tells Kyoko what he saw, which upsets her, but she quickly recovers her posture and then asks Soda if they were friends, to which Soda replies that she was practically wrapped around his arm. The next day she resumes her classes and when she arrives she asks Toru about Miyamura to avoid talking to him. At the end of class, Toru tells Miyamura that Kyoko seems to be mad at him, to which Miyamura replies that they are not fighting. It's complicated. Miyamura looks for her but Hori avoids him. Miyamura explains that the other day he told her he was in love with her because he knew she was awake, when he is interrupted by Hori asking him about the girl he was walking with, to which Miyamura replies that it's Chika and goes to Yasaka, which upsets Kyoko, as he calls the girl by her first name. However, she explains to him that she is Shindo's girlfriend and she lent them each an arm because they tripped and both hurt their ankles, and the more he says the girl's name the angrier Kyoko gets, and then we learn that Miyamura doesn't know her last name. After class is over we see how Kyoko feels bad for throwing the books at Miyamura when Soda tells her that Miyamura is at home. Miyamura asks her if she'd better leave, but Kyoko asks her to stay, which relaxes Miyamura. They both apologize and are interrupted by Kyoko's father, Kayasuke. He approaches Miyamura to ask about his piercings when he is hit by Kyoko. He later sits down and asks Kyoko for food and asks Miyamura who he is, to which Miyamura introduces himself, and then we see how Kayasuke annoys Miyamura and Kyoko for a while when he asks Kyoko if Miyamura is her boyfriend. When she is about to deny it she sees Miyamura and answers that he he is. At that moment Kyoko's mother appears, who is worried when she sees Kaisuke because she doesn't have enough food for him, and Kyoko holds Miyamura's hand. Then they say goodbye and both blush. When we pass to see Toru that while studying starts to cry thinking that he was closer to Kyoko, and then we pass to see Sakura arguing with Remi, since she doesn't want to tell him what she was seeing. Sakura thinks that Remi and Kyoko are pretty by having thin bodies to then tell Remi that she would not understand her because she is pretty, so she runs away, but then she remembers that Remi is her best friend. She returns and tells him that there is a boy that she likes. Remi tells her that she hardly ever blushes since she always keeps calm, but she really looks cute like that, in which we pass with Miyamura, who feels a bit awkward but is scolded by Toru, and Toru encourages him. Then we see how they meet to study with Kyoko, and we see how they flirt with each other. Then Kyoko and Miyamura go to Kyoko's house when Kaisuke doesn't recognize Miyamura until he takes off his glasses, and seeing him sweating so much invites him to take a bath together, and after dinner Kaisuke insists that Miyamura stay over, and they stay in the same room as Kaisuke. He keeps bothering Miyamura until he asks her what she likes about his daughter, to which Miyamura replies that she doesn't judge people by their looks. The next day they are seen by two students leaving the same house, which causes everyone to talk about Kyoko that day. Then we see how Toru and Yuki argue about it, which makes Yuki start to cry. Then we see how a boy asks Kyoko if she is really Miyamura's girlfriend, to which she says yes, which does not bother her, but Miyamura does, remembering Toru and Yuki's words of encouragement. The next day we see Miyamura arrive with short hair, which causes everyone's astonishment to be surrounded by a group of girls, causing a cold look from Kyoko, and then Shu approaches to give him a CD, but he is so surprised that he backs away when he sees it. Now we go to Kyoko's house, and Kaisuke as usual does not recognize Miyamura when he is called by Shindo, since he won a bag of candy. When they arrive with him we see that he is surprised and also backs out when he sees Miyamura's change and tells him that his cute and sweet Miyamura has disappeared. Later he explains that he won an online candy contest, but he only has rare flavors left, since his girlfriend kept all the normal ones. Later we see that Miyamura offers a cheese candy to Shindo, who doesn't like them, but when Miyamura gives it to him he couldn't refuse it. While he recovers we see how Kyoko took a plasticine flavor candy and Miyamura kisses it away. The next day we see how Toru and Miyamura are observed by a girl who is on the second floor. Then we see how the same girl stops Kyoko and asks her if she is Miyamura's girlfriend, to which she answers in a brusque way that yes, to later run away. The girl follows Miyamura, and after a while she stops to ask why she is following him. The girl ignores him and asks when she will break up with Kyoko. Miyamura answers never. The girl's name is Anoka Sawada, and she is in class 2 to 5, and aside he tells her that she will be back. Anoka follows them again, and this time we learn that she follows them because she is in love with Kyoko. The next day when they return home, Anoka and Miyamura find out that they live next door, and Anoka forgot her keys. Miyamura lets her into his house and gives her cake. Anoka asks her if she has siblings since she is good at taking care of people, which causes Miyamura to start laughing and tells her that she doesn't have any siblings. Anoka holds Miyamura and tells her that she had an older brother, who was a year older than her, but ends up telling her that she was just joking. Her phone rings and she says goodbye, and Miyamura tells her that whenever she wants she can go eat cake. In the afternoon when she returns, Miyamura's mother tells her that the Sawadas did have an older son, but he died last year. The next day we see Anoka and Miyamura arguing. When they separate, Anoka is bothered by a group of older boys, and she approaches Miyamura, who chases away the boys who are bothering her. After class we see Miyamura together with Kaisuke and Kyoko, who are watching a horror movie, and we see how Kaisuke complains since the movie is about a girl who wants to kill his father. He goes out to buy cigarettes and tells them not to go looking for him. Kyoko complains since Miyamura has never tried any moves on her, which embarrasses them, and when he goes over to kiss her they are interrupted by Kaisuke, who forgot his wallet. The group is in a store, and we see how Yuki gives Toru a punch to cheer him up. In the school Yuki asks Toru for help to throw away the garbage and then to buy a CD that she wants. Toru stumbles with Sakura dirtying her clothes, what causes that Toru apologizes and leaves running. Sakura asks Yuki if she is going out with Toru, but Yuki denies it, thing that makes Sakura happy. When Toru returns with her jacket to give it to Sakura, Sengoku appears and is surprised when seeing Sakura. Sakura asks him what attracts him of Remi. Sengoku tells her that it is the fact that he is not very strong. Southwest, she needs him close, and that makes him want to protect her. The next day we see Sakura return her jacket when she calls Toru, but before leaving Sakura stops him to give him, very embarrassed, a ball of cookies that she prepared for him. In the CD store we see how Yuki lets someone else buy the CD that she was looking for so much. Returned to school, Kyoko tells her that she doesn't spend much time with Toru lately, to which Yuki replies that he's possibly eating cookies somewhere. We learn that when Yuki is upset she smiles, and even when she desperately wants something she would never say it out loud, causing the things she loves most to escape her. We see a flashback of how Sakura hands her cookies to thank them for helping her and runs away as Sakura is next to Toru. Then Yuki tries to throw them away but ends up eating them. The following day Yuki asks Miyamura to teach her to make a cake, to what Miyamura agrees and gives her encouragement. Followed we see how in a week it still costs them to make a cupcake when Toru appears, and when noticing that Yuki made an effort to the point point of hurting her fingers. Toru eats it without hesitation and says it tastes horrible, but looks forward to the next one, which makes Yuki happy. The next day we learn that Miyamura will be on a trip to Hokkaido for 5 days as he is visiting his family. On the other hand, Miyamura has no battery and forgot her charger. We come back with Kyoko worried since she didn't receive any message from Miyamura, and so the days go by until she comes back. Seeing Kyoko's messages, she runs out to see her, and just as she gets out of the elevator she bumps into Kyoko, who was on her way to see him, and they hug. Afterwards, the group of girls suggest Kyoko not to watch so many horror movies together with Miyamura as it might drive him away from her, which later causes her insecurities when she is together with Miyamura watching horror movies and ends up crying in her room, but Miyamura follows her to encourage her and tells her that he did not fall in love with a normal girl. Later Sota tells Miyamura crying that she is his older sister, to which Miyamura replies that he won't take her away since she is his sister and he is her older brother. We see Miyamura with a younger version of himself and hear how he complains about his life to the point of wanting to die. Miyamura encourages him and tells him to wait a bit as he will meet people who are very important to him, and he wakes up since it was a dream. Then, Remy explains why he likes Sengoku, and we go to the past when their friendship was just beginning. When we see how Remy approaches Sengoku and asks him what he is reading, he answers and asks him if he likes reading. Remy says yes, and we see that they became close since every time Remy finished a book Sengoku lent him more until he invited her to his house to show her his small library. While looking for a book he finds one about the end of the world, and Sengoku asks him what he would do if he knew that the world would end tomorrow, to which Remy answers that he would spend all his money on desserts. The next day we see how he finishes the books that Sengoku lent him, to which he tells him that he doesn't have to read them in such a hurry. Remy answers that he really wouldn't like the world to end. Sengoku laughs at her answer and tells her that Kamioka is in love with her, to which Remy emotionlessly plays it down, then asks Sengoku to be able to go to her house again. Sengoku agrees and Abe that she is used to talking to boys, but he might get the wrong idea about her intentions. Already in Sengoku's library, Remy asks him what he would do if tomorrow was the end of the world, to which Sengoku replies that he would tell her that he is in love with her. Then Remy tells her that she is in love with him too. We return to Miyamura and Kyoko painting her toenails and then putting her foot on her head. Miyamura apologizes and Kyoko tells him that she is surprised since he always gets mad at Shindo and Anoka, but when he is with her he is always calm, to end up asking if he tries hard to have a facade with her, to which Miyamura tells her that he is really a calm person. Later she asks him if he would rather he be violent and rude to her. After thinking about it, she likes the idea at that moment, and we learn that Kyoko is not quite right in the head. The next day Miyamura tries his best to be nicer, which scares everyone. Then this one helps Kyoko carry some papers to the lab and takes advantage of the time alone to be violent with her, but they are spotted by 2 girls and run away. Miyamura apologizes for what he did, but we see how Kyoko is delighted. We then move on to see how a boy proposes to Yuki, and after 4 days she tells Kyoko and Miyamura what happened, as she wants to create a plan to reject the boy, where Toru pretends to be her boyfriend. Then, we see how everyone is surprised by Akane Yanagi's beauty. Yanagi understands that Yuki is not available and walks away. We see how Remy gives him information about Yanagi and we learn that he is practically blind. Then Yuki stops Yanagi and he says that maybe he got the wrong girl, to which Yanagi admits that he has liked her for a long time. We see how a group of girls praise Miyamura for how Kyoko combed his hair, which causes Kyoko to hit Miyamura, but he is also observed by a classmate. Then we move on to see how Kyoko and Miyamura walk home together when Miyamura asks him if he is upset about the girls, to which Kyoko releases his fury to later say that it doesn't bother him. When they cross paths with some of Miyamura's former classmates, and we see that it is Tanihara who in an instant starts to pick on Miyamura, which causes Kyoko to beat them up. Tanihara then reunites with Shindo and we see Tanihara's past where he observes Miyamura who is standing in front of an empty rabbit cage. We come back with Miyamura walking somewhere when Kyoko asks for a slap, to which Miyamura refuses, but she insists when Shindo shows up and tells her that she is begging him. He later tells her that he was going to spy on them from afar, but upon hearing that he was so mean to Kyoko he comes over and asks her if it is something sexual, to which Miyamura denies it. We see Kyoko depressed, which causes Shindo to offer his help, but she turns him down. Then Mayamure says goodbye, but he tells her to say it louder, to which Miyamura responds by taking her by the hand and yelling at her that they are leaving. Then we pass to see Tanihara's group that is right in the same store where Kyoko and Miyamura are shopping. As they leave he tells them to stop wasting time in the parking lot, to which the only guy who had not seen Kyoko gets upset to be quickly stopped by Tanihara, besides apologizing to Kyoko. When they observe how she leaves, she is. When she arrives next to Miyamura she is hit and held by the hand, which leaves Tanihara's group astonished, to then see how Miyamura questions if Kyoko is well in the head since she is very happy to be mistreated. When he sees her he lets it pass since he is in love with Kyoko. And so he returns home, where Miyamura asks Kayasuke for advice and Kayasuke takes him to the bathroom to have their talk, followed by Miyamura telling him that Kyoko likes it when he yells and hits her, to which Kayasuke tells him that it's possible since it's the opposite opposite of how he treats her when they are interrupted by Kyoko. Then Kyosuke asks her to sit down, but she refuses. He then tells her to look at how worried Miyamura is, but the bathtub starts to fill up and Miyamura gets soaked, ending the conversation. The next day Miyamura is talking to Toru and notices Mizuchi nearby and greets him only to be ignored by him, to which Miyamura explains that it may be his fault since Mizuchi is in love with Kyoko. Miyamura looks for his phone and can't find it, to which Toru tells him to look in the lab, so Miyamura goes to look for it when he runs into Mizuchi and asks him if he hasn't seen his phone, but he says no. Later, seeing how Miyamura is looking for his phone, Mizuchi offers to call him and it turns out he had it in his pocket but drops it, which causes the screen to be damaged, and then Mizuchi asks him how come she is with him, but then apologizes, to which Miyamura asks him if he would be able to hit Kyoko, to which he says no, followed by Miyamura telling him that then he couldn't be with her. Later when they leave, he just happens to cross Kyoko and Miyamura yells at her and pushes her, which surprises Mizuchi, but then we see Kyoko's happy face. Mizuchi tells Miyamura that he thought he was a loser before, but now he assumes it's easier for him to be confident with a girlfriend, to which Miyamura tearfully replies that of course. When we move on to see Tanihara, who is locked up next to Miyamura in a locker, and in summary we see how Miyamura plays with Tanihara's mind and makes him feel guilt. Then we see how he wakes up and asks for Miyamura's number from Shindo and tells him that everyone knew that the rabbits liked Miyamura more than anything, followed by him calling Miyamura, but since his phone is damaged he thinks he's ignoring him. When we pass by to see Miyamura helping at the bakery when Tanihara appears, to which Miyamura tells him that it is already closed and there is another bakery nearby, but Tanihara tells him that he wants something from his bakery and he will come back when it is open, and before leaving Tanihara tells him that he tried to call him, and that is when he learns that Miyamura has the phone damaged, followed by Miyamura thanking him for coming. Later we learn that Tanihara forgot to feed the rabbits and blamed Miyamura for the rabbits dying, and if he had told her he wouldn't be so heartbroken at the memory of it. When we see Kyoko and Miyamura walking to school, we notice that it's already winter when they run into Tanihara, who when crossing glances with Miyamura both are embarrassed, to then see how Kyoko complains to him not to take her boyfriend since they are always weird and they are hugging. Tanihara avoids the problem, saying that she should be worried about Shindo, when Curiously appears and Kyoko asks him if he spends a lot of time with his girlfriend, to which Shindo replies that lately no, since he is studying for exams, but if he spends more time with Miyamura. After the boys leave we pass to see how Kyoko tells Miyamura that she is not worried about girls, but if she thinks a boy will take him she will not be able to stand it, and asks Miyamura that if he falls in love with someone else it has to be a girl. Already at school we see how Miyamura keeps distance from her friends for that reason. Then we see Yuki accompanying her sister to buy art materials. When Yanagi appears they talk for a while, and at the end we see how Yuki gets depressed since her relationship with Toru is a lie. Then we see Sakura listening to the rumors that Toru is Yuki's boyfriend, and we see how Yuki tells the whole truth to Remi so that she tells it to Sakura, since yesterday she asked her if it is true that they were boyfriends, to what Yuki told her that yes, to followed Remi to tell her that she remained silent. Returning with Miyamura's group, these discuss that Yuki has missed many days to classes, and we see how the older sister scolds Yuki for not going to school, and she assures that it is because she wants something, but she doesn't want to admit it. Yuki turns on her phone and is happy when seeing the messages until she sees a message of Toru where she tells her that Sakura told her that she liked him. The following day Toru asks her to speak alone, where she clarifies that Sakura confessed to him, and just when she was going to answer Sakura told her that she did not need an answer and only wanted to say it. Yuki is annoyed because she did not tell him that they were not going out, to what Toru tells him that he promised to continue being her false boyfriend. Later Toru gives encouragement to Yuki, and we see Sengoku asking Remi if Sakura got boyfriend since she is more cheerful, to what she tells him that all the contrary, thing that leaves more confused to Sengoku. When Sakura arrives and this one notices that the window is not opened, and when she goes to open it this one sees Toru next to Yuki, she gets depressed, at the same time that Sengoku tells her that she seems happier, but she does not believe that it is because something good happened. Followed Sakura tries to run away, but Sengoku stops her and Sakura tells her that she was rejected even before being able to ask to leave, to what Sengoku tells her that that idiot should be expelled, to then see how Sakura lets out her sadness crying. We see how the group discusses about most of the group being only children, and we learn that Shu has a younger sister. Then we see that Yanagi is already part of the group and they start calling each other by their first names. Miyamura tries to help Anoka overcome her awkwardness towards the boys, and we see that she is making progress. When Shu appears and Miyamura, noticing him, tells him to quietly approach, but to no avail. After Anoka gets scared, Miyamura tells her that Shu didn't try to scare her and is a nice guy, which makes Shu happy, but Anoka tells her that's not the problem. She just can't stand loud people. Then we see that Shu is not feeling well, to which Kyoko and Yuki tell him to go home so as not to make the others sick, and on his way he sees Anoka carrying a box, and without saying anything he helps her carry it to the lab. The following day we see how Shu is already like new, in what we see that they are being observed by Anoka, who believes that Shu is angry with her, which surprises Sakura since Shu is never angry, but it does not last long since when leaving the room Shu explains everything to Anoka and this one runs away. Even so we see her hidden and happy. Then Motoka, Shu's sister, is depressed as the teacher laughs at her notes saying she wanted to go to Higashi. When we come back to the present, Motoka tells her brother that she won't eat dinner, to which Shu asks why to find find out that Motoka's teacher doesn't support her to the high school she wants to attend and laughs at her, but Shu tells her that doesn't matter and will eat her dinner, then asks which high school she wants to go to which Motoka answers and surprises Shu, who expected it to be a funny name. Then Motoka tells her that he laughed at her grades, to which Shu tells her that they are so bad that they make her laugh, which causes Motoka to hit him, but he tells her that he saw her books worn out from studying so much, which causes Motoko to start crying and asks what she can do to Shu, to which he answers that Higashi's uniform sucks and if her grades are not good enough she could enter Katagiri where the uniforms are nice, and he also tells her that she just has to make an effort. The next day Shu asks Kyoko to help her sister study, and we go to Kyoko's house, who receives Motoko, but that day they just get to know each other a little better, and then we go to Toru and Shu, who are in a temple because Shu is buying an amulet for her sister. Now we see that Christmas is coming and Kyoko wonders if Miyamura will be able to spend the day with her, to which Kyusuk tells her that it doesn't matter if she doesn't make it, but Miyamura must go for Christmas. Kyoko later asks Miyamura, and indeed she won't be able to go as she has to help her family with the store, then apologizes to Sota and Kyusuk, who are more depressed than Kyoko. Then we see Toru telling his friends that until recently he was in love with Kyoko, to then tell him that he and Yuki are more than friends but he will not start dating her, which causes the astonishment of Shu and Sengoku, who thought they were already dating, to then ask him if he likes Yuki, to which Toru answers yes, to which Sengoku tells him that if they are both happy like that for the moment it's fine. Returning to the school we see how Yuki asks Toru to go to his house since he wants to finish the game he started, to which Toru accepts but then changes his mind and tells him that he can't, although in the end he ends up accepting. Once at Toru's house, he tells him to go to his room quickly, which surprises Yuki, and then tells Toru that he regrets not being a handsome guy, which confuses Toru, who then locks the door, which worries Yuki, but after seeing that she is worried he opens the door and tells her that he is not going to try anything weird, and then Yuki tells him that she is not uncomfortable. We learn that Toru was so worried when he got home because Yashiro, the housekeeper, is very intense and doesn't miss an opportunity to embarrass Toru. We then move on to Sengoku, who arrives with his group of friends, and upon seeing Remy he gets nervous. Remy asks him if he will come for Christmas, to which he evades by saying if he can come to his house, to which Remy tells him that he wants to spend time with him in his room, to which he then refuses, which causes Remy to start crying, to then see how everything turns against Sengoku, and Toru tells Miyamura to teach him common sense, to which he gladly agrees. Then we go to Kyoko's house, where her parents see Kyoko's semester report where she has almost perfect grades, and then her mother tells her that the next time she receives her grades she will already be graduated, which makes Kyoko wonder what she will do after graduating. We then see how all of Miyamura's friends spend quality time with their loved ones. As we move on to see how Sakura encourages Sengoku to go to Remy's house, we move on to Shindo, who tells his girlfriend to just wait for him for a year, and we return to Kyoko's house, who tells Kyusuk that Miyamura won't be coming, to which he replies that it's his job to bring him here anyway, only to find out that Miyamura will bring them the cake, but most likely he will leave soon, which saddens Kyoko's family. But Kyoko arrives and is held for an hour. Later we see how Kyoko accompanies Miyamura and they talk about how close they are to graduation, when Kyoko tells him that there are still many things she doesn't know about him, but she wants to stay with him even after they graduate, to which Miyamura responds by asking her to marry him and then runs away, but Kyoko tells him that she will make him happy. Then they say goodbye since they need Miyamura at work. Then, they all take their school stuff with them as they are close to graduation, but Kyoko is the only one who has nothing to take, although they all ask her for help, in which Shu appears, who also took everything home earlier, but it turns out that everyone had something from Shu and he also ends up with luggage. Then we see that Yuki ends up having too much stuff anyway, to which Shu tells her that the stronger ones can help her, like Toru, Kyoko, and him, which infuriates Kyoko. Then we pass to see as Remy wants to go on a trip to a zoo, to what Sengoku and Yanagi support her, for then this one to try to flee, but she is stopped by Sakura, who tortures her so that she tells her that it bothers her, for then Remy to tell her that only to speak of the trip reminds her that they have little time together in the school, to what Sakura tells her that anyway they will continue being friends, for then Yanagi ends up proposing a trip after graduating. In what we pass to see Miyamura that is with Kyoko, and while she sleeps this one does not want that those days finish, for then to worry since if he had not known Sota everything what he lived would not have happened, and we pass to see a hypothetical world where he is not with Kyoko. We see Yuki speaking with Kyoko when Toru stumbles with her and it turns out that they are not friends, and then he leaves together with Shu. Later we see Sengoku that while he speaks with Sakura appears Remy, and this one is only Sakura's friend, and thus we return with Miyamura, who complains because she has not picked up her things. Toru returns since he forgot his phone, and this one stops Miyamura because he dropped an earring, but this one ends up fleeing. Later Miyamura comes back to himself since Kyoko is calling him, and we see Miyamura reflecting. When we get to the graduation ceremony day and when Sengoku was about to start the speech, Miyamura sneezes, which makes everyone laugh. Later we see how Sengoku chases Miyamura but he manages to run away, and when we get to the roof we see how he discusses with himself and tells him all the good things that happened to him that year, to finish congratulating him for graduating, when he is interrupted by a classmate who tells him that they were looking for him for the class photo, in which we see Toru who crosses with Sakura, and this one tells him that she is looking for Remy. Then Toru apologizes, but but is interrupted by Sakura, who thanks him because she had a lot of fun this year, and so they say goodbye, and what we see that Yuki was listening in a corner when she is surprised by Yanagi, who congratulates her for the graduation to then invite her to the trip that is planned together with the others, to what this one accepts. Then we see how Kayasuke calls Miyamura his son and asks him to take pictures together when Kyoko appears and attacks Kayasuke, and then we see Motoko, who sees Shu and tells him that her parents want her to go home early to be surprised to see how scandalous her brother is at school, to move on to see Kyoko and Miyamura walking together with their diplomas, while Miyamura reflects and thinks about how grateful he is to her for destroying his mentality, for wanting a future with him, and so ends Izumi Miyamura's journey.